lesson number 17, analyzing residuals. This is for May the 17th through the 21st. Guys, just a reminder, I need all work in by May the 26th, no later. I have to get everything graded because I have to have grades posted by May the 28th. So you have until May 26th. Make sure you get everything into me. Alright, so lesson 17. So we're going to learn how to use patterns in a scatter plot to predict what the residual plot will look like. Alright, what will the residual plot look like? Well, each point in the scatter plot is one by one. Okay? Each point, we're going to see whether it has a positive or a negative residual. Now, if you remember, if it's above the line, it is a positive. If it is below the line, it is a negative. Alright, so let's go ahead and look at this first question. It says, predicting the pattern in a residual plot. Suppose you are given a scatter plot and least squares line that looks like this. Describe what you think the residual plot will look like. Alright, so look carefully at this scatter plot. I want you to look that moving from left to right, the points tend to be below the least scattered or the least squared line. Alright, then they go above it, then they go back below it. Alright, so here we're going to say the residuals were negative, then they went to positive, and then they were negative again. Alright. The residual plot has an arc shape like this. Why is looking at the pattern in the residual plot important? Well, what this does is it provides another indication of the type of relationship between the two variables. Alright, so it provides another indication of the type of relationship between the two variables. In other words, I can look and see what kind of relationship is going on. What's happening as one thing changes, what's happening to the other. Alright, let's look at example number 2. Alright, so example number 2. Suppose that you have a scatter plot and that you have drawn the least squares line on your plot. Remember that the residual for a point in the scatter plot is the vertical distance of that point from the least squares line. In the previous lesson, you looked at the scatter plot showing how fuel efficiency was related to the curb weight for 5 compact cars. The scatter plot and least squares line are shown below. Alright, so now let's answer some of these questions. What kind of residual will point A have? Well, looking at point A, it is going to be a positive residual because it is above our line. Alright. Question 2 says, what kind of residual will point B have? Once again, point B is going to have a small positive residual. It's going to be very small. Going back A for just a second. That's a rather large. We need to probably say that's a large positive residual. What kind of residual will point C have? It's going to be a large negative residual. Okay? You also looked at the residual plot for this data set. Alright, so this point shows the residual for point A. This point shows the residual for point B. And this shows the residual for point C. Alright? So we're not going to really talk about how the graphing calculator can do this, simply because you don't have graphing calculators at home, and it's kind of hard for me to explain that to you. But this is what a residual plot would look like. Alright? Using a graphing calculator to construct a residual plot. In an earlier lesson, you looked at data given the shoe length and height of 12 adult women. This data set is shown in the table below. Alright, so it says use a calculator to construct the scatter plot with least squares line and a residual plot for this data set. Okay, so I'm going to come over onto the back, and we're going to kind of, I'm going to kind of do a rough of what this is going to look like. Alright? So this is our shoe length. And this was our height. Alright? I'm just going to kind of, and I'm not going to do a huge scale here. I'm just going to kind of tell you that this is about what the scatter plot would look like. Alright? Alright, when I do my residual plot, now remember that residual plot is going to show me how far my points are from the, sorry, I'm trying to write and do this at the same time. It's going to show me how far it is from 0. Alright? So, this is what my residual plot would look like. Notice that for the most part, alright, my dots aren't horrible. They're not extremely far away from that least squares line. Alright, and if I were to draw my least squares line, it would be somewhere like this. Alright, so you're going to see some small residuals, and then this is what our residual plot would look like. So this is a short lesson, but after fitting a line, the residual plot can be constructed using a graphing calculator, and the pattern in the residual plot indicates that the relationship of the original data set is not linear. So we see that we don't have a linear relationship. Alright? Guys, this is probably the last lesson we're going to do the rest of the year. You know, hopefully you'll have a great summer and know that I've missed having you guys here this year. Hopefully we'll see you back next year. Have a great summer, guys, and make sure you get all your work into me.